Hello, dear students. Greetings of the day. Today we are having the fifth lecture of chapter first phase of national movement. In this lecture, we will study about the uh, criticism of early nationalist. Okay, whenever you are doing something, so there are people who support you and there are people who criticize you also, right? So likewise, the early nationalists were also criticized, right? So they may ask in which ways the early nationalists were criticized by the other leaders of national movement. Okay, and then we will study the second topic, which is official attitude towards the Congress. So in first topic, which is the criticism of early nationalists, right? So their methods, I have written these key points. Okay, right, these key points only I'll explain you. Inadequate methods. Okay, the other leaders of early nationalists called these the other leaders of the national movement called the leaders of Indian National Congress, early leaders of the Indian National Congress, and their methods were called as inadequate methods. Means they said that you are limited to only giving petitions, writing applications, giving memorandums, and whatever you are doing, you do that within the constitutional framework, within the four walls of constitution. Okay, your methods are inadequate, as British will just take applications in. Okay, and after taking it, they'll throw that application or that memorandum or that petition or that prayer application into the dustbin. They will not listen to you. Okay, so these methods are inadequate until and unless you do something more aggressive, like calling for bandh, okay, close, right, or doing protest, right, blocking road. These types of things were required. Okay, but these things were not constitutional. So early nationalists didn't switch to those methods. So the methods of early nationalists were called inadequate. Okay, the other leaders of the national movement uh, criticized them because of their methods. The first thing that was, and in your book it is written, the early nationalists created the method used by early nationalists of passing resolution and sending petitions were criticized as inadequate. They depended on the generosity of the British instead of relying on their own strength and challenging the imperial might. Okay, so they didn't rely on their own strength. Actually, why didn't they rely on their own strength? Because that national movement was in its infant stage. Indian National Congress was also in its infant stage, and the conditions were not ripe for switching to such harsh and aggressive protest. Okay, for calling band or boycotting or doing such type of things. Okay, the conditions were not suitable. All the activities of these early nationalists would have been curbed, but still the activities of early nationalists of sending petitions and prayers and memorandums were criticized. Then second is opposite interest. Okay, now it is said that the early nationalists were not able to understand the interest of the British and interest of the Indians. The British and the Indian interests were opposite to each other. Britishers were looting India. They wanted to rule India because of their economic benefits, because of their economic gains. Okay, whereas the early nationalists were thinking to have more representation in the ages of Britishers. Okay, so they were a kind of supporter to the Britishers. So the other leader said that okay, you should not support them as because you are supporting because you are not able to understand the interest of the Britishers. They failed to realize that British and Indian interests clashed with each other. Britain was using India's resources to increase its wealth. So this is the second point. Then masses and educated middle class. What I have written this, it is that okay, their movement was limited to only to the educated middle class. Okay, at the time the doctors, okay, lawyers and other professionals, okay, they formed a group. Okay, the Indian National Congress was actually a group of lawyers, doctors and teachers, professors, okay, and other officials, and their movement was limited to them only, to the elite middle class. Okay, they didn't seek the participation of masses. Common people were not included into the national movement. National movement was common people was nothing to do with the national movement at the time. Okay, common people were included to the national movement later on by Gandhiji. Okay, on a very large scale, getting or not. But earlier only these people, these educated people, used to give petitions to the Britishers to increase the representation, right, in legislative councils. At the time, the poor people, the poor common people, poor common masses were not able to know what was legislative council and how the Britishers are responsible for the economic declination of India, right, and various other things. They were not able to understand the concept of civil liberties, okay, civil rights, democracy, and all other such modern ideas, right? These were not conceived by them, okay. So that's why their struggle or their movement was limited to this educated middle class only, okay. This was also one of the criticisms. So these three criticisms you have to remember. Then next is official attitude towards the Congress. What was the attitude of the Britishers towards the Congress? So during the starting, when the Indian National Congress was founded in 1885, at the time the British were very much supportive to the Indian National Congress, and it is said that A.O. Hume founded this organization in order to channelize the anger of the Indians. Okay, right? That we have studied in last chapter, safety valve theory. Okay, we will not go into the detail. So in the starting phase, the Britishers were very much supportive. Okay, they thought that now they will seek the cooperation of the Indians and no revolt like 1857 will take place now. Okay, but later on, when the Indian National Congress started demanding for their rights, okay, and for more representation, then these British officers started opposing them. So in starting, from in 85 86, their attitude was very much supportive. Okay, Lord Dufferin was, you can say, response behind the formation of the International Congress. Okay, he was also having a helping hand in the foundation of International Congress, and he supported so much that he called the Indian National Congress leaders to the Garden Party. Okay, and the governor of Madras also called them to have a Garden Party. Okay, so later on, the same person, Lord Dufferin, ridiculed them, insulted Indian National Congress to be the representative of a only microscopic minority. They said, you are not the representative of entire India. You just represent a very microscopic minority. Okay. So they ridiculed, and they Lord Dufferin called them disloyal babus or villains. Okay, so many terms he gave, like violent villains, right? And then from 1890, all the government employees were stopped, okay, from attending the deliberations or discussion of Indian National Congress. Earlier, in the discussion of earlier National Congress, which used to take place in December month during the INC sessions, okay, Indian National Congress session, which was held in December. In that, discussion was done. Okay, deliberations were there, serious discussion were done, and various resolutions were passed, right, to make a scheme, okay, of work uh, for the year, right. So in that, so many people used to participate. Okay, even the government employees used to participate. So now the British officers or British government stopped them. Okay, in 1890, the government employees were forbidden from participating in the Congress deliberation or attending meeting. Okay, and then later on, what they did? Later on, they sowed the seeds of communalism among the Indians. Okay, they declared this as an organization of Hindus and instigated Muslims to found to establish their own organization. Okay, and they instigated to Sir Syed Ahmad Khan also, right, and to the Raja Shiv Prasad of Banaras also, right, for founding another organization which would be the opponent of the Indian National Congress. So like this, They turned Hindus against Muslims, Muslims against Hindus, people against their leaders, and leaders against their people, right? So their aim became now divide and rule. Okay, so from since then only the communalism grew on, and now still it is growing on. Okay, so that was all about the criticism of the early nationalism and official attitude towards the Congress. In next lecture, we will study about the prominent leaders. Thank you so much.